Good afternoon to you. Mark Stott of HurricaneTrack.com here. It is time for the off-season edition of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. It's Monday, a dreary Monday here in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I am. It's the 18th of April, 2022. We kind of have a mixed bag of weather to look at today, especially under the lower 48 weather section of today's update, this week's update. You know, it's not going to be too much longer once we get into about mid-May, so less than a month to go, and these will become almost daily. They're going to become much more frequent as we get towards and into the hurricane season. The Eastern Pacific hurricane season, of course, begins May 15th. And as we get more severe weather coming, these will become much more frequent. So we're almost there. But this week, it is kind of nasty in the east, getting set up for another bout of severe weather in the nation's midsection. And, of course, we will take a look at some things related to the tropics. We'll do that first as well. All right, good to see you all again. After traveling to Florida for the National Hurricane Conference, I'll talk about some of the things I learned. At the end, a little bit of commentary for you at the end of today's update. First, let's look at our good friend and indicator of what's happening with the state of the ENSO, the El Nino Southern Oscillation phenomenon. Part of that is the SOI, that oscillation, the pressure patterns between Tahiti and Darwin in Australia. And look, these numbers, I talk about these often, and when they are strongly positive and consistently so, we're in La Nina. These are some of the highest index numbers I've seen in many years. Everything's double digits here. The contributor for today is plus 20. The 90-day average is now up to 12, more than 12 and a half. And then the 30-day average is at a whopping 14, which is double what the Bureau of Meteorology typically looks at or thinks of when they say, hey, look, the atmosphere and the ocean are in this La Nina state. Once the SOI is about positive 7 and it holds or goes up from there or consistently remains around plus 7, we are in a La Nina state. That's kind of the way they look at it down there. And look at this, we've doubled it at a solid 14 there. So definitely in the La Nina pattern here, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. I think it's locked in, and we're going to be ready to go for the hurricane season with no El Nino. So there you go. You can see it's gone up here in recent days, and very high values here overall. And so that translates to what we see here on the map. Some pretty strong, this map doesn't show what I'm pointing out, the easterlies, but you get with a strong SOI, pretty strong easterlies blowing across, and that keeps all of this mixed up, and the cold water upwells from below in the tropical Pacific and elsewhere. So we do have this La Nina pattern in place. Remember, in recent weeks, this area here, the Nino 1-2 especially, was warming up. Well, it has cooled off again quite significantly, and so we're locked into that La Nina. It's not changing. We're not going to have an El Nino. Meanwhile, Gulf of Mexico, pretty much the entire Gulf now, has warmed, and it is all, except this one little area, it's all above normal, or above average, the 20 or 30-year average, whatever it is, kind of right where we should be across a good deal of the deep tropics, but off of the Iberian Peninsula, the northeast Atlantic, and then the rest of the subtropics over here of the western Atlantic off of North America, water temperatures are above the long-term average. So even though this area right through here, off Africa, over to the Caribbean, the main development region, despite the fact that that is running a little bit cooler than average or right at it, or it's not screaming above normal, I've seen a lot of talk in recent years, which is ironic, about how stable the deep tropics are. We're not having a lot of long-track hurricanes. The MDR is basically shut down and so forth and so on. Need I remind you that none of that mattered when we had the likes of, and let's just look at 17, from 17 on. 17 was a deep MDR season. Irma, Jose, Maria, no doubt. So, and even Harvey struggled across the main development region, and then, of course, it came to life. But let's look at Harvey. Even in 2017, it was not a Category 4 out in that rectangle that I drew. It blossomed 48 hours before landfall down near Rockport, right? We all remember that. And so we had Harvey, we had Michael, we had Ida, we had Laura, Zeta and Delta, all of those strengthening very close to landfall Florence came out of the main development region, but it did most of its strengthening up here in the subtropics as it headed towards the North Carolina coast, coming ashore as a Category 1, very devastating with all the flooding that it caused. I just think there's a lot of emphasis on the MDR when some of our more historic events didn't come from the MDR. Now, some did, make no mistake, but Katrina didn't, Rita didn't, Wilma didn't. They were not major hurricanes down there. But to be fair, Frederick was, David was, Ivan was, Gloria. There's plenty that were. Don't get me wrong here, but the main development region being stable, maybe sinking dry air down there, that's not going to keep us from having a devastating season necessarily. So I see a lot of people talking about, well, the MDR is cooler and it's more stable. I don't know, like the people in Port Fourchon and Laplace and all that, believe me, the MDR had no bearing on their season last year, unless, enough said. I think you know where I'm coming from. So an interesting pattern as we get within 45 days of the Atlantic hurricane season starting. We've seen the forecasts. Pretty much all but one of the reputable institutions that put them out are calling for a very busy season. The one that is not, I'll try to kind of draw it in here, is Arizona over here. Bad drawing, but you get the idea. University of Arizona, their hurricane forecast is like 14, 7, and 3. They're going a little on the lower side. That's still a busy year. 7 hurricanes? What if they all hit land? That's busy enough. And it only takes one, as they say. All right, let's move along. This right here is related to this. So I think we can stop showing this now for a couple months because we know what's going to happen. CFS has done a really good job. I should dig up an update from January and just show you a clip of when I showed this back in January. And it was like in January, it's like, yep, it's going to tank. Well, here we are. It's tanking. There it is. It is happening. The CFS has done a pretty good job here. The Euro always wants to just create like super Ninos all the time. So its plumes have always been well north of neutral, which is right down the middle here, this index value of neutral. CFS V2 has done great. So this is locked and loaded. This will be the last time we look at this graphic. I might do it next week and just show you what it showed back in January. That could be interesting. Like, prove it to you. Look, the CFS has done really well. Give credit where credit is due. All right, what about actual sea surface temperatures? They are going up, thank goodness. Losing the temperature gradient down here, closer to my neck of the woods. The gradient, again, temperature difference over distance in this situation. Temperature gradient, that's what that means. So why is the gradient lessening? Well, because uniformly, water temperatures are warming up. You don't have that contrast of much colder water on the northwest side of the Gulf Stream like you still do up here. This is still some very cold water butting up against the warmer waters of the Gulf Stream and just the warming subtropical Atlantic as a whole. So we're getting there. 19 Celsius, 18 Celsius, so forth, getting close to 20. That's upper 60s, getting close to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. We're making progress. On the Gulf side, look at that, the 26 degrees Celsius isotherm right there. Almost, it's just due south of the Pensacola region, Pensacola Bay, that area. It's getting there. Shelf waters are still a little cold up there. It takes a little longer for them to warm up, but boy, once they do, you know what's coming. You guys are going to have water temperatures in the upper 80s all through here by the time we probably get to mid-June, if not before that. Elsewhere, though, Florida Bay down here, the Keys, that's all warm enough, 26 Celsius, all around through here, nosing its way up into the Gulf. There's 26 Celsius, pretty much spreading across the entire Bay of Campeche. There's 27 C, which is about 81 Fahrenheit, warm in the Caribbean. It's getting there, making progress. The waters are warming, the energy is getting stored up for a busy hurricane season ahead. So anything out there now? No, of course not. It's only April. And, we usually don't see anything in April, hopefully. Interesting little disturbance here that we'll talk about in just a moment, especially if you have cruise ship interest down across this region. I did a cruise recently, so I'm a little bit more familiar with all of that and how important that can be. There are some showers and thunderstorms and gusty winds down there. I'll talk about what's causing that in a moment. There's a little glitch in the satellite animation. It's not your eyes. You're not having a stroke or a seizure, hopefully. There is a couple of frames missing, but that's okay. Look at this energy coming down out of the plains, and we've got a surface low down here. All of that's going to kind of combine here. It's doing so now. We're going to get a heck of a nor'easter, and I should have had a little segment on here. You know how you see on TV, on ESPN, and network TV, they have like a swoosh graphic with some interesting sound effects, and it's like a segment. The story of the week, or the play of the day, or the ESPN highlights, top 10, whatever. This segment should be called, I just don't have the fancy graphics and sound effects because we don't need them, but you get the idea. I'd call this, if I did, if it were winter. Because if it were winter still, like the heart of winter, if this was February, let's say, February 18th, wow, what would be coming this way over the next few days would be pretty remarkable. But it's not. It's April 18th. Still, that being said, this is going to be a heck of a nor'easter, especially for up here. You're going to get some heavy, wet snow. Ben Knoll, he'll certainly be tweeting about it, being the Hudson Valley fame that he is, and a trusted source too. He's not just famous, he's trustworthy. So that's a good combination, in my opinion. But yeah, this is going to be a heck of a storm moving up that way. It's already doing so here in my backyard. 2 inches of rain so far. All right, again, out in the Atlantic here, this is a good follow, in case you're not following them. The TAFB, the Tropical Analysis and Forecast Branch, they're at the National Hurricane Center, and they produce forecasts related to, but not directly connected with, the National Hurricane Center. That's why we have the National Hurricane Center, but they work together in tandem, and they certainly have collaborative efforts. They have their analysis, and we get some TAFB analysis when we have invest or storms. You get those numbers, the T numbers, etc. So anyway, TAFB saying today it's an upper level disturbance stretching from the Bahamas to the Central Caribbean, and that is triggering these scattered heavy showers and strong thunderstorms near portions of the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and all these other regions. Cuba, Jamaica, through the Caribbean and Atlantic waters. Pretty wide range of areas here impacted by this feature. Upper level energy, cold air in the upper atmosphere interacting with the warmer Atlantic underneath, and you get these unstable situations here with heavy rain showers. So if you're on a cruise ship, you're visiting down there already, or you live there, that's why. That's what's causing all this. So just be aware of that. Not related to anything tropical just yet. If it was later in the year and the waters were much warmer, we might watch this a little closer, that it could work its way down to the surface, but not this time around. It's not going to happen. Probably not. Very, very high chance it won't. So the weather map for today, kind of getting busier. Some advisories, winter weather related and coastal storm related in the east. I mean, look at this around Jersey, some coastal flood advisories there. Some frost and freeze here in parts, most of Missouri, in fact, western Illinois. And then wind advisories, etc., here in the desert southwest and vicinity. Dynamic pattern coming up for sure, starting with today's storm system. So we'll look at that in more detail in a moment. Starting now, there it is. From Mark Nissenbaum over at Florida State University. Haven't pulled this site up in a while. We'll love it during tropical season, but it's a nice, what did I do, like a 100 frame or 75 frame loop. There's the storm system here over the east. Heavy rain across the Carolinas. This is going to scoot up this low pressure area. A classic nor'easter, just not enough cold air to pummel the I-95 corridor from Raleigh to Boston. Instead, it'll be more in the northeast. I'll show you that on the GFS in just a moment. Severe weather-wise, limited convective activity today. Very little overall activity, so that's good. Hey, look, don't neglect it. In the Pacific Northwest there, yes, even in just a tiny sliver of Washington, in almost the entire west coast of Oregon, just a few scattered storms, and then again some limited convective activity associated with that storm for most of the east coast, south of New England proper, all the way down to the east coast of Florida. Nothing too organized, too widespread, or too out of control. That holds true for tomorrow, and then even on into Wednesday. But at that point, we start introducing another storm system coming into the Pacific Northwest. Return flow, more energy gathering in the nation's midsection. And just to show you out into time, into the future here, let's see if they've updated it usually up. So day 5 we already have a 15% area for day 5, right in the heart of Tornado Alley there. So we'll revisit this, especially on social media, Twitter and Facebook. And you know who to follow to keep up with this as well. It's that time of year. Just giving you the heads up. Central Kansas up through eastern Nebraska. And this will switch and change and morph as we get closer. But there's a storm system coming in. I'll show you that on the GFS in a moment. That's going to light things up in the heart of Tornado Alley here coming up. All right, first, the sort of surface map, as I like to call it, from Tropical Tidbits here. It looks kind of complicated. It is. There's your energy in the east here. And then the moisture and more energy at the surface. A lot of this is upper level energy, even though that's not reflected here necessarily. It's there. Cold air as well. And then the warm sector with more energy in the southeast has created this surface low. And watch what happens. This little bugger comes up the coast there. And yeah, look at all that blue. Some heavy snow in the Hudson Valley. Cold, yucky, dreary conditions at the coast. Windy as well, so maybe some flooding concerns. Just be sure to check. By the way, back at this site here, weather.gov, like for example, Jersey. You click on New Jersey there, and yes, there are coastal flood warnings, parts of Long Island Sound through Connecticut and New York. Important stuff, so be sure to click on that. You go to weather.gov. We'll do the survey another time, thank you. Go to weather.gov. And you can click on the map. It's very interactive wherever you're interested in. Even storm warnings up here. I bet Scituate is going to light up in eastern Mass there. We were there for a winter storm at the end of January. Probably going to have some big waves coming off of Cape Cod Bay as this nor'easter cranks up. But all of this is related, and that's what we're seeing here. This is just 18 hours out. So overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, this thing gets going and scoots on up into southeast Canada as the next storm system comes into the Pacific Northwest. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. I like to see this, and you should too. Blue and green out here in the west, California. Yes, that is good. We need moisture out there. It is very important. It's almost on the level of national security. Seriously, that's really, really important. Fresh water. You think we got problems with petroleum and oil in this world? Wait until we have issues, major disruptions in the ability to have fresh water. Luckily, we're not there yet, but this is important. I really emphasize this. Sometimes bad weather can bring good things, all right? And this is a case of that. Look out west. That's good to see. Moving on along, though, 96 hours out, that storm system slides into the nation's, the high plains, really, and quite a windstorm with that, and overall severe weather with another blizzard, maybe, in the Dakotas and parts of Montana. Lots of snowpack. That snow's going to melt. We're going to have flooding issues probably on the Red River. There's a lot going on. Now we're at day 6, and then finally day 7. That storm system slow to move across the nation's midsection. That's what it looks like at the surface. This is what it all looks like in the upper levels. See it? There's the trough right there. Look at that thing curl up coming out of the Rockies. And let's do the same thing. There's 168. At 500 millibars, that's what it looks like at the surface. That's how meteorology works. Look at that nice ridge, though, in the east. There you go. Nice and warm in the east, stormy and chillier and stormy, especially in this area right here in the middle of the country. Basic synoptic meteorology for you there. All right, that's it. I'm done for now. But before I go, just a couple of things here. National Hurricane Conference, finished that last week down in Orlando. Really a privilege to be able to speak in front of the distinguished people of the National Hurricane Center, the forecasters, the scientists, you name it. Met several new people, including, and I finally got it literally from the gentleman's mouth, Philippe Papin. You see the guy that, the forecaster at the Hurricane Center. He's new, but he also does those amazing annotated GIF animations on his Twitter. His name is Philippe Papin. If you remember my updates in the past, I don't know how to say it. Is it Papin or Papin? I knew his first name was Philippe. I just had intuition. It wasn't Felipe. It's Philippe, but was it Papin or Papin? So I asked him. I met him, and it was he's a really outgoing individual, very, very smart, very bright. You can just feel like you stand next to him and you become smarter. I'm serious, and I'm not just blowing sunshine his way. It is true. We should be very thankful. I'm serious at the scientists that we have at the National Hurricane Center. And the same holds true at the Weather Prediction Center and the Storm Prediction Center. Some of those folks collaborate on tropical meteorology. Greg Carbon is one such individual. He's now at the WPC, used to be at the SPC. A lot of this rainfall stuff that we see. And then there's just different people I met. Dr. Brian Phillips, he works with Dr. Forrest Masters. They're all in the University of Florida. Just some brilliant people. I got to meet forecaster Reinhardt. I can't remember his first name off the top of my head. And forecaster Brennan. I think it's Michael Brennan. But all of these people new-ish at the National Hurricane Center. I hadn't met them before. We had the COVID thing. Yeah, I hate that word. We all do. I just call it the thing. But that's kept us apart for, almost 3 years since the last meetings, right? And it was just really, really special between the National Tropical Weather Conference in South Padre the week prior and then the National Hurricane Conference this past week down in Orlando. But we're in good hands. We really are, from the director to the deputy director all the way down to these forecasters. And, of course, the deputy director is a good friend of mine, Jamie Rome, who was with the Storm Surge Unit. I got to meet a gentleman. I know I'm going on and on, but you can tell, like, it really had an impact on me. Yes, I was presenting, and that's great to be able to showcase our stuff, but I wanted to interact with these people and have some one-on-one conversations, and I did. I also got to meet Cody Fritz. He's with the Storm Surge Unit, and we're going to be giving the Hurricane Center a lot of our Storm Surge video to use in educational purposes going forward. So just a remarkable, remarkable time. I appreciate our patrons that help to support this financially so I can afford to go to the National Hurricane Conference. The only beef I have is they don't cover the speakers' costs. And, it's like, come on. So be it. So that's why we have our crowdfunding. They covered my cost to get down there and back safely. Time well spent, money well spent to do it. Great connections that were made, and I look forward to next year. All right? So there you go. That's my commentary and thoughts on that. All right, we are on Twitter. I handle all of our Twitter. CJ on our back-end team handles pretty much everything on Facebook. And then we have a tremendous talent pool, our crew, that helps us look good right here on YouTube. So if you're not subscribing, excuse me, yet on YouTube, it's real easy. Everything's HurricaneTrack. That's the brand. So subscribe, hit the notification, do the like button. You know what the gamers tell you. Do it. Make us grow and follow us. And when we go live, especially, you'll know, because it's coming. We're going to be doing some work in the Great Plains probably week after next, or this weekend coming, whatever, this next storm system, the one after that. There's more coming. We should be making an expedition out there pretty soon. I'll talk more about that as we get closer. Lots and lots of things coming up. We're within 45 days of hurricane season, so things are going to start happening. And I can't wait to bring you guys with us for another year of incredible coverage and everything that we do. You know it by now. And if you don't, you're new to what we're doing. Well, hello. Welcome. You are in for quite a ride. All right, that's it. Let me get this online for you. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. This has been the Old Hurricane Outlook and Discussion Off-Season Edition, just for a few more weeks. And then it's time. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll speak at you again next week.